Hello, my name is Mark Harold. I am the showrunner for the Doctor Who Nick Scovell Adventures audio dramas, but we're all bringing you a little something different. Inspired by the brand new Doctor Who stories written in isolation during lockdown by the likes of Chris Chibnall, Stephen Moffat, Russell T Davies, we are bringing you a story to mark the 155th anniversary of the assassination of President Lincoln. Join us for A Moment to Lose. I kept on until I arrived at the East Room, which I entered. There I met with a sickening surprise. Before me was a catafalque, on which rested a corpse wrapped in funeral vestments. Around it were stationed soldiers who were acting as guards, and there was a throng of people gazing mournfully upon the corpse, whose face was covered, others weeping pitifully. "Who is dead in the White House?" I demanded of one of the soldiers. "The President," was his answer. "He was killed by an assassin." Abraham Lincoln, 11th of April, 1865.
I needed a break, to go somewhere new. I watched the central column, my wonderful time rotor, rise and fall. I breathed a rather sulky sigh, if I do say so myself. I'm not impatient, you understand, just keen to move onwards. I looked over to the corner of my darkly lit control room, where lay the nestled sofa. Jade was reading La Planète des Singes. By this time in our travels, she'd become so well versed in other languages, she didn't require the English translation of the book. A bon travail, I had told her, bon travail. Sat 6 feet up the other end of the sofa was Miles. He was positively ensconced in a very early edition of the Beano. He closed the last page and placed it precariously on top of an untidily tall pile. What a sight. Cluttering up the place. It was balanced carefully, though clumsily, as was Miles's wont, on the arm of my sumptuous and ornate sofa. Whilst they read, I too read, the instruments on the console, trying to repair damage from our recent battle with the Vord-Drashig Pteroleptal Alliance. Within an instant, Miles had leapt up, all impatience and hormones. "I could do with some fresh air, Doctor," Miles told me, whilst running a hand through his mop of blonde hair. "I was thinking maybe we could go for a walk in a park somewhere, maybe Central Park, New York?" With that, Jade leapt to attention and joined Miles at the console, both of them at my side. She too was keen to visit New York City. I offered an alternative. "What about the Eye of Orion? We could go for a walk around there." They answered in unison. A flat, firm, assertive no. Swines. I tweaked a couple of digits and knobs, and the screen in front of me showed the vortex. I smiled. For the vortex made me feel safe, secure, home. "Where are we near in the vortex? We're never far from Earth," Jade piped up, staring at me with an expectant look in her eyes. I told my friends we were indeed passing Earth. We were passing by the 14th of April, 2020. This titbit of info sent Jade and Miles off in an exciting tiz, trying to work out how old they'd be now and how travelling with me has confused them to the point of not knowing their true ages anymore. The phrase "welcome to my club" sprang to mind, though I didn't say it out loud. Let's avoid there for now. It's a bit quiet. I warned them both, not wanting to go into it any more for the time being. "Quiet sounds like a euphemism," Jade scoffed at me with a raised eyebrow. I did what I could to reassure them both that we should just trust the old girl, and then I pulled my favourite lever. Miles squinted, tutted and slid on his glasses. He read off the screen. "And our winner is," he said, watching the data screen scrambling through a series of numbers. These numbers were years away from our current point. It's a useful app. We occasionally used it as a randomizer to select places to go. It's more fun than it sounds. A wry, cheeky smile slowly spread across Jade's face as the number slowed, settled on a minus number. We were going into the past. The number stopped. It read, -155. "Rightio, 14th of April, 1865 it is," I declared, holding my breath. I twisted a few dials, ran round the console and threw what I deemed a happy smile to my friends. However, they informed me it was an unsettling manic glare. Talk about ungrateful. That beautiful sound reverberated across the control room. I won't attempt to reenact it, but needless to say, it's a wheezing, groaning sound. I told them both to get their coats. As if this is New York in April 1865, it may still be a bit cold. Landing complete. I slid on my darling corduroy coat and went for the doors. Out we stepped.
It was always like this. My first glance out of the TARDIS doors and my brain is awash with stimuli. The smell of the trees, the costumes, the clothes that the people were wearing. Horse-drawn carriages. Oh, I really do live the best life out of anyone ever. Fact. I took a few steps forward, careful not to step on any butterflies. Though I've never been sure if that was hyperbole on the doctor's part. Miles rushed out behind me, grinning like a kid at Christmas. "Look at the carriages! Smell that air! Amazing!" Miles shambled forwards, and, the silly sod that he is, bumped straight into a handsome man, about 25 years old, well-dressed, dreamy grey eyes, chiselled jaw. You know the type. However, he had a neat little moustache, a bit Errol Flynn. Turned me right off him. I should know. I've dated Errol Flynn. "Watch where you're going there, young man. This park's more than big enough for the both of us," the man said with a hint of flirting. "Thanks. You've saved me. My hero," Miles purred. "Give me strength." Miles watched as the man walked away. The man glanced back and smiled at Miles. With a quick roll of my eyes at the shameless tart, I walked over to a bench. It was customary in our travels to look for a newspaper so we could confirm date and location. Nothing. Finally, the doctor stepped out of the TARDIS. He had his cane with him again. I admitted it gave him a certain je ne sais quoi, and then we all took a stroll, arm in arm. The doctor in the middle, of course. Granted, we got some strange looks. Not sure if it was for our Wizard of Oz sauntering through the park or for our modern clothes. Well, I say modern. They were modern for me. Not sure if still modern for 2020. Still, I thought to myself, 2020 is 155 years away. Therefore, I'm ahead of any trends. "There must be somewhere we can buy nuts," the doctor said as he left us for dust and began rushing over to what looked like a central meeting point in the park. Miles and I shared a knowing nod and ran over too. The doctor had stopped 30 feet or so in front of us. "No nuts." The doctor sounded decidedly grumpy about the lack of salty food produce on offer. Before I could offer any comforting words, we spotted people waving at a carriage that was riding by near us. "Who are they waving at?" Miles questioned. "No idea," began the doctor. "But I want to wave at them too!" The doctor rushed off to a spare area of grass next to the roadway. Miles and I joined the doctor and waved as the open carriage rode past. This elegantly dressed couple waved back. It was the man that instantly took our attentions. He was weathered, tired, like the worries of the world had taken their toll. He had a thin, narrow face and a beard across his chin. I don't know the name of the beard style, but it's exactly the same as President Lincoln's. Oh, wait. I had clocked him. Naturally, the doctor got there first. Ooh, fangirled the doctor. Mr. President, he announced, loud, proud, and pleased as punch. Was that Abraham Lincoln? Miles said, amazed at our celebrity spotting, but late to the party. I agreed with Miles, and we all excitedly spoke of seeing Lincoln in the flesh. It was then I looked across at the doctor. His sheer joy had been replaced. He now looked grey, stony-faced, almost angry. What? What is it? I uttered, almost scared of the answer. Let's walk into town, the doctor declared, his random frustration starting to boil over. It was then that we left the park and walked into history.
Me and Jade were following behind the doctor as we walked through some town. For a guy with little legs, he walks much faster than you'd think. It was at a point the doctor stopped, after about 15 minutes of solid walking, that I decided to question the doctor. He says he doesn't like us asking questions, but sometimes we have to get him out of a slump. Will you please tell us what is going on? I just wanted to sit in a park, have a rest, maybe a picnic, but talk to us, I asked. Look around you, both of you, began the doctor. Does this look like New York City to you? I don't know what Manhattan looked like in the 1860s, Doctor, Jade replied, with a hint of frustration in her tone. From old photos I've seen, I'd say no, I asserted. It is then the doctor explained. This wasn't New York. It was about 228 miles southwest, Washington D.C. Cool, I exclaimed. Somewhere else to tick off my list. Not cool, Miles. Look at this boarding house we stood outside of, the doctor posited. Jade read the sign. Peterson House. Right, I'm not getting the significance. And across the road from here, the doctor replied, his voice cracking as he spoke. I glanced over. Ford's Theatre. At that point, I felt sick to my stomach. The doctor spoke with utter resignation in his voice. Showing our American cousin tonight. I looked at Jade. She'd realised too. We all had. It didn't need saying. We all stared across the street. A staff member of the Ford's Theatre was stood outside. He clocked us three staring. You three looking to come to see the show tonight? You'd better hurry. It starts in under an hour. Just by sheer luck, there's 3 tickets left for tonight. Hurry up and snap them. We got a very special guest in attendance tonight. Thank you, my good man, was all the doctor could mutter in response. We looked back at the doctor, searching for answers. I think the doctor saw this and tried to reassure us in his own awkward, alien way, which basically was filling in the gaps and hoping that would help. That means it was about 6:30 p.m. or thereabouts when we saw Lincoln and the First Lady in the park, before taking in a show that evening. And there's 3 tickets left, Jade said with more than an ounce of tremble in her voice. It was then I realised the magnitude of this, the enormity and other posh words. This is the day Lincoln dies, isn't it? I began. When he's assassinated by, Lee Harvey Oswald. That was Kennedy, Miles. Lincoln's killer was John Wilkes Booth, Jade replied. Keep your voices down, the doctor chided. The doctor hushed me, Jade, both of us, told us not to be so loud, not to draw attention to ourselves. The doctor told us the press was aware the Lincolns were coming to the theatre that night. Apparently, Lincoln didn't really want to go, but felt obliged to keep his word. Then the doctor told us both about Lincoln's dream from 3 days before, seeing the corpse of an assassinated president in the White House. It really freaked me out. It sounded like a premonition, but the doctor reassured us it was more likely stress due to the end of the Civil War and threats on his life. The doctor asked us for our honest thoughts, whether we should return to the TARDIS and go elsewhere, leave this fixed point to happen on its own. There were 1,700 people in the crowd that night, the doctor imparted. 1,697 tickets, 3 left. I spelt out. I looked at Jade. We both forced a smile. We knew. We'd already become part of events. In we go, Jade said. The doctor looked at us both and sighed. Let's take our seats then.
I had tuned my watch to the correct time. I counted down the seconds. I stopped looking up at the presidential box 10 minutes before, not wanting to affect history any more than was necessary. I pondered that if I had spotted Booth and he had spotted me, he may have reconsidered. History cannot be rewritten, not one line. 10:25 p.m. 10:26 p.m. Then it happened. Although I was expecting it, when the gunshot ran out, I jumped. Startled, upset, furious, I turned to Jade and Miles, though it was all a bit of a blur. Looking up into the box, I saw a scuffle. I saw Booth fighting with Major Rathbone, one of the president's guests for the evening. Then I watched, still helpless, still useless, as Booth leapt 12 feet down from the box onto the stage. Jade made a leap forward onto the stage and kicked Booth in his left leg as he stood back up. I'm sure I heard it break, though in the mirror I couldn't be sure. Booth yelped in pain. Jade fell backwards, pushed aside by, I presume, a Major Joseph B. Stewart who ran for Booth. "Stop that man," I heard Rathbone shout from the box. I felt so powerless. All I could do was observe. My rage boiled. To ground myself, I looked for my friends. Miles was helping people escape the aisles, helping people like he always has. Jade didn't take her eyes off Booth. The cacophony of screams became deafening, shortening my patience ever further. I flickered back to this reality when Miles grabbed my shoulders. "What do we do, Doctor? He may fire again." I knew what to say to reassure Miles. Booth used a derringer that only fires one shot. "So he had to make it count," Miles replied. "If memory serves, he dropped it. It stood up there." I pointed to the box. "We shouldn't be talking this openly about it. We need to leave out the front. Come on." I had to shout several times for Jade to notice me. Then I ushered my friends out of Ford's theatre. They were ahead of me. They reached the foyer when I clocked eyes with a chap at the back of the auditorium. He fixed me with a smug grin. He was tall, almost gangly, in his 20s, clean-shaven. His hair was greased back, more 1950s than 1860s. He smiled a toothy grin at me like some joker. I didn't recognize him. I don't know if he thought he knew me, but I found him rather unsettling. As I passed him, the man grabbed my arm. "I survived the journey," he whispered in a well-spoken English accent. "Do I know you, young man?" "Your friends need you," the man spoke coldly. "Better not keep them waiting." Before I knew it, we were outside in the rain. I hurried Jade and Miles a few doors down from the theatre. We watched as Lincoln was carried over to Peterson House, the nearest place with a bed. As we watched, I informed my friends that the bed Lincoln was now dying in was slept in Booth just a month earlier. Grisly fact. I took a deep breath and reflected on the evening. It had the potential to be a wonderful day, ruined by time. Time can be mean. I must remember that, I thought to myself. "I'm learning there's nothing we can do about it, Doctor," Jade said in a way that was so pragmatic it almost lifted me from my mood, but not quite. Without wishing Jade to think I was giving her the silent treatment, I decided to force some words of encouragement. "This hasn't been easy, not taking action. seeing the assassin in the limelight committing murder and having to let it happen. That poor man. Now he belongs to the ages. It proves we must be cautious and vigilant. It proves that we haven't a moment to lose. There's still so much to see and do, where time allows. Come on, let's slip away quietly. Back to the TARDIS, Miles asked. Yes, I began wistfully. Back to the TARDIS. I'll make you both a cup of cocoa. We can raise a mug to the President. Let's stay in for a bit. Let's be careful. Let's stay safe. Stay safe. Hello everyone from us all here at Doctor Who The Nick Scovell Adventures. Just a quick message to say stay safe, look after yourselves and enjoy the offering. Thanks to Adrian and Mark for sorting it out as they sort everything out. Thanks everyone.
Hi everyone! Hope you're all well, hope you're healthy, hope you're safe, hope you're sane-ish. Hope you've baked a million cakes and written operas and whatever else people do.
Hello everyone, just sending my love from home. Hope you're staying safe.
Thanks for watching, take care and stay safe.